How does neuroplasticity work? I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let me tell you how in a quick and dirty explanation of neuroplasticity and how we can use it to help you control your brain so that you can conquer ADHD, addiction, anxiety, sensory processing disorders, and more. Okay, so let's dig in. What is neuroplasticity? You've probably heard me say before that neuroplasticity is your best friend if you're doing all the right stuff and your worst enemy if you're doing all the wrong stuff. So, how neuroplasticity works is when neurons fire together, they wire together like this. That's called Hebb's Law, H-E-B-B, Hebb. Hebb's Law dictates that when neurons start firing together, they wire together and they become neural pathways. Neural pathways, and you probably hear me say all the time doing this wiring and unwiring of this and wiring of that. That is Hebb's Law. The more we use a brain pattern or the more we engage in a behavior or a thought process, that's literally hardwiring our brains to perform in a specific way. So I'm going to give you an example of that. Then I'm going to give you an example of how we undo that. But the example would be is if you struggle with anxiety and you feel anxious and then you don't go out because you feel like you have social anxiety. What you've just done is rewarded the anxiety pattern and used it more and more and more. So it is hardwiring itself in because the neurons and the neural energy for anxiety are flowing and are firing together. So Hebb's Law states the more you use that pattern and the more often those neural pathways are being traversed and used, you're going to hardwire your brain to use more high beta, extra fast speed that creates anxiety and then perpetuates anxiety. Now, that's when neuroplasticity is your worst enemy. So when you use the anxiety pattern and you feel anxious and then you don't engage in the world and you feel more anxious because of that, that becomes a downward spiral. And I always call it a downward spiral, but it's actually a negative feedback loop. So what that means is you use the brain pattern for anxiety, then Hebb's Law starts wiring it in so you become a more anxious individual. Then there's consequences to the behavior, which in this case, it would not be a reward, it would be a consequence. You don't get to go out. And that's a negative behavior that comes from a negative brain pattern that gets you a negative outcome, downward spiral. And that happens in addiction. So if you engage in an addiction and you go do that behavior and then you feel guilt and shame because of it, and then you don't go and interact with other people, downward spiral, and it perpetuates more of it. So how do we break that? We make neuroplasticity our best friend by beginning to do some of the right stuff and then being motivated and propelled to doing more of the right stuff. And if you know me, the number one right stuff thing to do is to start training your brain using neurofeedback so it starts performing better all by itself, which will help you to be able to instill a positive feedback loop. But the way that we are going to break the negative feedback loop in the first place is using a anti-Hebbian neuroplasticity rule for homeostasis. So what that means is that your body and your brain actually want to get back to homeostasis, to just feeling good. Our natural state is one of feeling good and of feeling joy and of being on purpose. And we're social beings. We want to be connected. We don't want to be isolated. So if you don't engage in the negative behaviors and you do nothing, your brain will start unwiring itself all by itself. And that's the beauty of neuroplasticity. Now, what makes it even more beautiful is that if you engage in positive brain behaviors, like brain training, like neurofeedback, and some behavioral options, which I'll give you in a second, if you engage in those positive behaviors, not only is the pattern unwiring itself, the pattern for anxiety or addiction or ADHD, it's unwiring itself. And at the same time, you're now wiring in the new better brain pattern for calm focus. That's how you succeed. So when you're wiring in that calm focus brain pattern, you can do it in two ways. Top down through brain training, and neurofeedback literally teaches your brain to make more of perfect processing speed in the middle and less of that anxiety mode, less of that distracted, unfocused mode, so your brain can just perform better all by itself. Then, when you engage in behaviors that can make it so that this Hebbian law starts working and your brain is wiring itself into the better optimal pattern for calm focus, you're using two ways of the street. You're using a bottom-up approach using your body and your mind. So what that might look like in a practical sense is if you are engaged in an addiction, let's just say overeating, for example, if you feel the need to overeat, but then you don't overeat and instead you have a salad and chicken, now your brain says, wow, I just made the better choice. I just ate healthy and I didn't overeat. Now you have more energy because you didn't have a big greasy meal with a lot of processed food and sugar. So you feel healthier. So then you decide you want to go take a walk because you're feeling good. You're not feeling bogged down. Plus you're mentally motivated. Now you're hardwiring in that optimal pattern. Now, because you didn't break your new healthy eating pattern, you didn't break that for lunch. Now you're motivated to have some salmon and quinoa and broccoli for dinner, and you give yourself a little treat of a delicious Lindor truffle for dessert, and you're still feeling good because it's just a taste and you didn't overeat, but you indulged a little, and now you decide you're going to play baseball in the backyard with your kids for a few minutes because you have more energy. That starts the positive feedback loop of the Hebbian law of neuroplasticity. It's your best friend. You're doing the right stuff, and you are hardwiring in that optimal brain pattern for calm focus that will help you make better food choices tomorrow. That's how it works in any addiction. That's how you can avoid alcohol. That's how you can avoid other behavioral addictions. That's how you can choose to go out even though you might feel a little anxious, and go hang out with some friends. And now you didn't feed the anxiety pattern for social anxiety. You told it, you don't own me. I got this. And you're hardwiring in the Hebbian law of neurons that fire together, wire together for calm focus. That is how we break the negative brain patterns that are controlling you, and we establish the new better brain patterns that you control. So everything I'm telling you is neuroscience, and it's founded in training your brain to work better from the top down, and then being able to engage in the behaviors from the bottom up so that you can break that negative feedback loop, establish that positive feedback loop, and ride off into the sunset. Okay, I hope that helps. And remember, control your brain or it'll control you.